All right, I know this pops in before. Here we go. All righty. Hey, True Believers England team here with back issue Breen. How are you doing today, man?
Well, you know, I'm doing both of my jobs every day for the next week or so. And I left the one to come back home, and I got ready to do some work and realized I'd left my price gun at the store. And I was too lazy to go back and get it.
And so that just gives you a break to talk. Yeah, that's awesome, actually. I've been in a really good mood, although I did make a mistake today. Actually, two. One, I sold a Disney pin, and it slipped off the boxes that I usually ship out into between the door and the seat. And this lady's like, "Hey, it's been damn near a month. I haven't got my pin. What's up?" I'm like, "What do you mean? I sent it to you." Surefire that I sent it to you. But I found it and I was like, "Oh no, I got it. I'm gonna send it to you right away." Just to make sure I knew it didn't get lost. Gail says, "Hey, can you do this?" Okay, fine. I forgot it was in the damn glove compartment, and in my mind, so I get another message today.
Like, you are roboting really bad.
Oh man, that sucks. I understand what's going on with this. I don't even have my background on. To do, I don't know. But then I did another thing stupid. I was looking for a collection to buy for the next auction, and as I'm going, wow, okay, that's cool. I'll put $2.50 on that, $2.50 on that, $2.50 on that. Turns out I can actually help LK finish that collection of Freedom Fighters. So I go 250, 250, 250, 250, thinking, okay, I'm gonna win some, lose some. Holy shit! It's going to be an interesting auction this week, guys. But anywho, hello to Austin P. What's up, Trusty and One Slick? So the main topic, of course, this is open mic. Whatever you guys want to talk about, ultimately we can. But the main topic we're going to talk about is this Stan Lee documentary that came out for Disney Plus. Was such a hand job for Stan Lee that it left out the other part of Lee and Kirby. And the family of Kirby kind of wants things to be set right. Now, I got this article here from Bleeding Cool. It says Neil Kirby challenges Marvel's version of Fantastic Four's origin. And now the legend goes, before we get into this, I know that the legend goes, Stan Lee was bored with comics. He's ready to go. He wants to quit. And what's his name comes up to him and says, we need a team. And Jones says, well, if you're going to quit, write the book that you want to. And thus the Fantastic Four was born. Is that about how you heard it?
So the legend goes.
So the legend goes. And old Neil here, he's saying, not quite. Let's see what he has to say here. And of course, if you have something to say, just give us the heads up. Alrighty. And yeah, you guys in the chat too. I was talking to Eric, but yeah, if you guys have something to say about it. All right, so it goes to say granddaughter of Jack Kirby and Jillian Kirby posted on behalf of her father, Neil Kirby, regarding a recent article published by Marvel Comics looking the Fantastic Four. I hope that's not actually how they worded the ahead of the 2025 planned Marvel movie. She posted a statement from my father, Neil Kirby, son of Jack Kirby, disputing an article about the Fantastic Four published 8/8/23. Okay, that's the article. Anyway, in the article it says, an article published 8/8/23 on Marvel.com by TJ Deitch titled, Who Are the Fantastic Four? The official Marvel guide begins with the paragraph, Where did the Fantastic Four come from? The author then quotes Stan Lee's Origin of Marvel Comics published in 1974. This creation story of the FFs is at most outrightly false, if not least highly disputed. I'll invite you all to read my statement published on this Twitter. And he says, as Stan Lee related in 1974's origin of Marvel Comics, he had grown a bit bored by the simplistic nature of stories he had been churning out for 2 decades. According to Lee, 2 moments occurred around the same time. First, his wife Joan challenged him to focus more fully on making comics he would be proud of. Second, Marvel publisher Martin Goodman inferred that a superheroic team book could be a surefire hit and that Marvel should get back to the spandex game. Seeing the opportunity to make something completely different, Lee called upon artist Jack Kirby, and the pair got to work. Their results introduced the world to Reed Richards, Sue Storm, Johnny Ben Grimm. It says, back in June, Jay shared the following statements from Neil Kirby, then in response to the Stan Lee documentary. And this is, I watched it. If you're a comic book fan, the documentary is very simplistic. You're not going to learn anything new. If you aren't, maybe it'll be like, oh wow, I did not know that. Okay, so it goes on to say the 13th century. Okay, the 13th century Islamic poet scholar Rumi said, "The ego is the veil between humans and God." In the Disney Plus documentary of Stan Lee, the veil is lifted, presented in the first person with Lee's voice providing a running narrative. It is Stan Lee's greatest tribute to himself. The literary expression of ego is the personal pronoun I. Any decent English or journalism teacher would admonish their students not to overuse it. So the challenge is extended to anyone who wishes to count the number of I's during the 86-minute running time of Stan Lee. Eric, I'm going to bring you in on this and say I absolutely, first of all, I did see the documentary and I could attest to the fact that he does do that. But I would also say it's part of what made Stan Lee and what made Marvel so popular. Stan Lee's a grandstander.
Yeah.
He always has been. He's the guy who said that like Spider-Man comics are the greatest thing put from pen to paper since Bill Shakespeare. I don't think he actually believed that, but that was his thing. So if he's pumping this stuff up, he's in there, he's pumping, he's going to put, I'm not surprised he put himself above the other creators.
No, I'm not either. Stan was at the time pretty much the staff. Now, something I learned recently was that one of the reasons why Stan was able to get Jack to come back was he had just been taken off of the challengers.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jack had felt slighted, which is basically the story of his life.
Yep.
And he came back. Now, as far as who did what, how much credit should go to each, I don't begrudge anybody with the last name of Kirby disputing this, because you have to ask yourself, what version of, and I'm making air quotes, the truth did they get from their father? Probably I'd say there might have been some, bitterness, maybe some embellishment. Now, I don't deny that Jack had a lot to do with all of it, and more than Stan on a lot of it. But if you're going to criticize Stan Lee, maybe the best time to do it isn't after a documentary about Stan Lee. I mean, what do you expect when I said the greatest huckster, and I mean that in a positive way, that this industry has ever produced? Because without him, I don't know what the comic industry would look like today, if it would even exist today.
There are many instances. You and I have read the histories, and comic books seem to have almost always been about to go bankrupt. It was only the period between 1978 to 1998, that 20-year period right there, that comic books were actually thriving. And what a great time to be alive. What a great time to be a comic book collector. But even in the 70s, DC and Marvel weren't doing all that great. DC was doing worse. Oh, we have a guest. And hello to the real Dr. Venkman, except no substitutes. How you doing, guy?
All right. I'm getting there to your guys' age. I'm deaf in one ear right now.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Like what?
Okay, yeah. Just sad to hear that. Hey, Matt, what's up? What's up? All righty. Let's see. Let me continue this up. I understand that as a documentary about Stan Lee, most of the narrative is in his voice, literally and figuratively. It's not any big secret that there has always been controversy over the parts that were played in the creation and success of Marvel's character. Stan Lee had the fortunate circumstances to have access to all the corporate megaphones and media, and he used these to create his own mythos as to the creation of the Marvel character pantheon. He made himself the voice of Marvel. So for several decades, he was the only man standing and blessed with long life. The last man standing, my father, died in 1994. It should also be noted, and is generally accepted, that Stan Lee had a limited knowledge of history, mythology, or science. On the other hand, my father's knowledge of these subjects, to which I and many others can personally attest, was extensive. Einstein summed it up better: more the knowledge, lesser the ego; lesser the knowledge, more the ego. Okay, now you gave me, and thank you very much once again. This is a great book I've read multiple times already. But you gave me a Jack Kirby biography book. I think it's out on my other shelf here. And he actually mentions this, by the way. Jack Kirby he was a little bit more of a hippie than a lot of people actually understand. But one of the things he really does talk about is how he wanted to play around with myths and gods and legends. And we see that in his work with the New Gods and Eternals and such. So while, of course, we can only take his word for it, I do believe what Neil is saying here about Jack Kirby.
I'm not disputing that. Now let's look at the characters that he created with Stan.
Okay.
Their success versus the Eternals and the New Gods without Stan. Because I said Stan or Jack may have been more creative. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but without Stan's voice to breathe life into those creations, they don't take off to the degree that they do. Because I said, there's been an Eternals movie. It's not even a reasonable facsimile of what Jack did. The New Gods movie was scrapped. Now, that wasn't Jack's fault. That was the people attached to it. But, and it's why I say about Stan, you talked about that 20-year period where comics were thriving and blah, blah, blah. But they weren't selling like they were in the past. And that wasn't comics' fault. There's more things, more competition for the entertainment dollar. And this is why I say, if Stan doesn't hype Marvel through the years, if that pairing, the Lennon and McCartney of comics, don't do what they did to build this industry into what it was, when other things like video games and the albums became CD, when entertainment options became so plentiful, would comics have survived that, or would it have just kind of gone by the wayside and become another 30, 40, 50-year fad, for lack of a better term?
I like the argument it seems to me you're making, is that whether or not Stan deserves the credit he takes, he does deserve the credit for being who he was. And as Trusty put it in an earlier comment, the cheerleader of comics. And it wasn't just Marvel. Obviously, he was the voice of Marvel. But by him doing what he did, he kind of lifted all boats. Now, granted, DC always did worse than Marvel in my lifetime, except for Rebirth. But it was something that it still lifted. You read the X-Men, you look over and you see the Teen Titans there very similar. They're not ripoffs or anything, but they're very similar in the fact that they're young heroes, and it's more about the relationship fights, although there are fights aplenty. So I do believe Stan Lee's promotional personality actually did help everybody on the field, because he brought people into the comic shop, or to, at that time, even maybe the grocery store or the convenience store, and comics sold.
He created comics that your little brother could graduate DC from and start reading as they got a little older. And then it became up to DC to catch up.
Yeah, and
to what Marvel was doing.
I think it was the Crisis that really flipped that.
I agree. I think about DC. When they were trying to reach the kids, this is in the '60s.
Yep.
They're giving you Bob Hope and Jerry Lewis. Now, I love those as a collector, going back and reading them now 50, 60 years later. But I don't think they were the first people that the kids thought of when it came to hip.
Probably not. Dell had that with the greatest musical group of all time, the Monkees.
if I'm trying to think, like, if Marvel had a book based on a comedian, it probably would have been, well, he was already dead, but like Ernie Kovacs, or who was the guy that kept getting arrested that was in the season of
Lenny Bruce.
Maisel? Thank you.
Was that the Beatles you showed?
Oh, no. The Beatles were highly influenced by the Monkees.
So, and yet be sure to repeat that and tag you, right? Isn't that how that goes?
Yeah. If anybody argues, fight hard and tag me into that argument. Yes. Let me see. Dark Admiral. Hey, how you doing, man? Stan was larger than life. It's his voice I hear narrating whenever I'm reading a Marvel comic. He was the voice of Marvel cartoons. You go and watch Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, or The Incredible Hulk, or Thing Ring Do His Thing, or Fantastic Four, except for as the robot, it was Les Nessman from WKRP. But otherwise, Stan Lee really was the voice of Marvel cartoons. The failed pilot for X-Men, Pride of the X-Men, Stan Lee. It wasn't until the 90s where they went, yeah, we're good.
If I can interject some real quick, Jay, not only did DC not outsell Marvel in the late 80s and during most of the 90s, they were looking up at Image for a good chunk of the 90s. Now, they were, for the late 80s and through the 90s, I don't think it's arguable that they were producing better comics on the whole, but it just, they were never able to get past Marvel because, as I like to point out, there's no such phrase as a DC zombie.
That is true.
Even though Marvel started their creative, Marvel in the first, like 80 through 86, 87, unbelievable. I don't know that, other than the years that everything was originally created, it's hard to beat those because of all the great runs you had. But the guy that kind of made sure all that happened got fired, and without his iron hand, you saw the results 5 or 6 years later. You saw a guy with a couple years in the industry able to force Chris Claremont off of the title he'd built into the most successful franchise in Marvel history, and then he leaves. So, like I said, it's and then DC was just doing great stuff all the way through, but they were getting killed in sales, and the same in the 2000s, because all Marvel has to do to win is spell their name right. Because I said when Rebirth happened, Marvel was dead nuts in the middle of SJW Marvel. They were absolutely at their lowest, and it was still a razor thin margin that was completely pissed away by DiDio when he brought in Bendis and basically allowed Rebirth to get scrapped.
When that was the time I was doing Monday on Mondays, I would do Marvel versus DC. It was basically the sales. I would track the top 20 and see who had more comics. And I wasn't tracking book numbers or anything like that, or money or anything like that. I just thought it would be fun to see who had the most comics in the top 20. Was it Marvel? Was it DC? Who wins the week? And for the beginning of Rebirth, and yes, you could measure it between pre-Bendis and post-Bendis. DC was constantly kicking Marvel's ass. Now, it wasn't 100%, but for the most part, it was DC. And then Bendis came in, and you could actually see the interest fall off a freaking cliff. Anyway.
Yeah.
Go on ahead.
Yeah, I just got two things to say. I posted up in the chat earlier. I don't know if you saw it all. I had posted, so basically this whole argument is pretty much is like the Hayfield and McCoys. Yeah. There's people who are basically never going to let this argument die down ever. And the other thing is that it's been so popular, this whole between Jack and Stan, this whole talk is that Chip Zdarsky did a book about it called Public Domain, where in that book, the outcome is that it was found out that the artist actually had the rights to the character, created it. Where the writer had been living this whole lavishing life. So I'm wondering if Zdarsky is a Jack Kirby guy.
Maybe.
Well, I think you tend to find that people connected to the industry. Like I said, we've got someone in the chat that I believe has worked in comics. Spiffy has done some work in comics, right?
Yeah.
He leans Team Jack. That seems to happen among creatives. And the people that like, maybe like the business side, or people that are like that don't have a dog in the fight per se, tend to be a little bit more neutral. But Jay, I'd have to see proof of that in those years. I would say maybe in the early 2000s when Jamas was absolutely, but then they had the Ultimates. But I would say if DC were, remember it was DC that basically scrapped their universe in 2011. And started over.
They
and
kicked
then did it
themselves
again
in the balls.
5 years later.
I mean, honestly,
they've been trying to catch up ever since.
Between the artist and the writer, as far as who creates what, if Stan told him, I want to do a character like this, so then Jack comes draws something like this, it's more like a co-created thing. Where Jack were to draw this, and then Stan fleshes it out. That's Jack's. It can swing either way. It all depends how it was done. But that's why it's best to say they co-created everything.
So he continues to say, if you were to look at the list and timeline of Marvel characters from 1960 through 66, the period in which the vast majority of Marvel's major characters were created during Lee's tenure, you will see Lee's name as co-creator on every character, with the exception of the Silver Surfer, solely created by my father. Are we to assume Lee had a hand in creating every Marvel character? Are we to assume that the other creator never walked into Lee's office and said, Stan, I have a great idea for a character? According to Lee, it was always his idea. Lee spends a fair amount of time talking about how and why he created the Fantastic Four, with only one fleeting reference to my father. Indeed, most comic historians recognize that my father based the Fantastic Four on a 1957 comic he created for DC called The Challengers of the Unknown. Everybody who actually is a comic book collector sees the freaking similarities between Fantastic Four and Challengers of the Unknown. And I mentioned that because I do know there are people out there who are definitely modern Marvel readers and such who don't give a fuck about anything that started. But any modern Marvel writer probably doesn't know the connection between Challengers and Fantastic Four. But if you've been reading for any amount of time, yes, of course. Even naming Ben Grimm the Thing after his father Benjamin and Sue Storm after my older sister Susan. Eric?
Yes?
I was just wondering if you wanted to chime in here.
I'm sorry, I was actually typing something out.
It was the basic thing about how Stan Lee says that he co-created every character, but there had to have been somebody who came in with an idea, and the idea of the Fantastic Four. We all know the Fantastic Four came from the Challengers.
Yeah, and who's to say that Stan? I mean, like I said, that if they use that as a template, but who's to say that Stan didn't come up with, or at least help come up with the differences in the characters? Because they were explorers, and there were 4 of them, and they all wore the same uniforms once the Fantastic Four got uniforms.
Now, of course, I see your where you're going with this. Now he could have said, he could have said, well, I was doing this book and I would like to continue it, and Stan Lee grabbed the concept but then changed it up, because obviously the Fantastic Four and the Challengers are not one-to-one comparisons.
But I remember that Stan or Jack came back to Marvel because DC took him off of his own book.
Yeah. There's so much you can talk about Jack Kirby, and some of it's not happy. I wonder what would have happened to Jack had he been born just a little bit later, just after the Great Depression, because the Great Depression put a fear into him that a lot of creators did not have, especially the younger ones that during the Silver Age, that did not actually understand or experience the Great Depression the way he did. He experienced a starving family. He, as a kid, had to go out and work and find work. And that's ultimately what led him to sell his drawings.
I would say better. It would have been better for him, worse for us, because that man. Yeah, the guy that owned the comic book shop where I now work, he busted his ass every day of his life, because as successful as he got, and he was worth millions. He invested well. The store was a success. I mean, he owns a giant farm, nice, blah, blah, blah. There wasn't a day that went by and he didn't think he could have it all taken away from him. That was Jack Kirby. He worked every day like it could be his last if the tiniest thing went wrong. Now, that probably led him to make some very bad business decisions. And again, all of his partnerships ended poorly. Now, I was reading something again the other day where, Wally Wood and Steve Ditko were really good friends. You know, one of their common bonds was a seething hatred of Stan Lee. Okay, now you see the pattern here. I said, Wally Wood was a mercurial drunk, more talent than, he was Steranko, probably more, well, no, he was more talented than Steranko, but he was his own worst enemy. Steve Ditko was his own worst enemy. Jack Kirby was his own worst enemy. And Stan Lee's kind of like that outlet for all their frustrations. So they bonded over a dislike of Stan. There's a common denominator there. So either Stan's the biggest jackass that ever lived, or maybe there's enough fault to go around.
Could be. It's easy to hate on one person and blame everybody for your faults,
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
That's why get married otherwise.
I mean, that's why we don't go on this channel anymore. Killer Baby said he or she met Jack Kirby at a convention in New York City. And he said, I handed him a Fantastic Four comic, Age-rated signature. He looked at it and then looked at me and said, this is stolen from me. I apologized and went to hand it to him, and he told me to keep it, but he wouldn't sign it.
Wow. That's
I'm like, Dave, sign that freaking comic.
Hey, Dave's got it. Dave says blame Ash.
Yeah.
At that point, I'm thinking, like, how many years ago has this gone by? I'm thinking, like, just sign the thing, get the money, and leave,
Yeah, because I'm sure what he meant by it was stolen from me. I'm sure he means the concept.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's again, it's a shame that this one, but there was a comment earlier, I can't remember who it was from, said those same people, i.e. Martin Goodman, were screwing Stan for years too.
Yeah, they were.
Stan Lee, people gloss over.
You made a mention of it. Stan Lee was the Marvel staff between the end of the Golden Age and the beginning of the Silver Age. When he came back from the war, he came back to a desk that said Stan and a whole pile of freaking paperwork, basically. And he was Marvel Comics. That's one of the reasons why they became a copy house. If DC was doing something and it was popular, Marvel would do it. If Dell was doing something, it was popular, Marvel would do it. They didn't really have a lot of original concepts, even if they had original characters. The concepts were absolutely taken from here and here and here and here and here, which also kind of lends itself to the challengers of the unknown. But there you go.
I can imagine Martin being a dick and be like, "Oh, you want this business? Well, you can. Here's all the shit you got to do to make his life a living hell."
Now, Martin Goodman was a worm. Martin Goodman wanted to be Hugh Hefner. He wanted to be a magazine magnate.
Yep.
Even though he was considerably older than Hugh Hefner, but he tried to replicate Playboy's success. In fact, one of the few smart things he did, and I've mentioned this before, National came to him and offered to buy Captain America, the Human Torch, and the Submariner for, I think, $15,000 a piece. And he said, "Well, I'm already rich. I don't need the money." So, it's a good thing he didn't, because who knows, what happens without those characters going forward. And not running Stan off before he and Jack could do what they did. Because I said, I don't know if you were on the stream, was when Cadence Industries bought Marvel.
Yeah.
Martin Goodman tried to arrange it to where his son would become editor-in-chief of Marvel.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah, and they gave it to Stan because they said, who's this putz?
Stan actually knew what he was doing.
Yeah, and he'd done it for 10 years.
Okay. The article continues, though the conflict between Lee and my father concerning creator credit gets glanced over with a little mention, there is more attention paid to the strife between Lee and Steve Ditko, with Lee's voice proclaiming it was my idea, therefore I created the character. Ditko being that his art story is Spider-Man life. In 1501, Opera del Duomo commissioned a 26-year-old Michelangelo to sculpt a statue of David for the Cathedral of Florence. Their idea, their money. The statue is called Michelangelo's David, his genius, his vision, his creativity. Of course, this is the big debate: who really created what character. I always point, or at least I have pointed to Cable, because Rob Liefeld came in with a picture. His name's Cable, and the personality was put in by Louise Simonson, excuse me. And so, who really created it? The guy who just created the picture, or the person who made the character? Sorry about the roboting. I was
confirming. I wasn't sure if it was me or not, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Probably I am, because Eric mentioned it. But point being is, obviously, I would think that if somebody created something from nothing, they are the creator. Therefore, Rob Liefeld created them. But you don't know anything about them. What he created was a shell. You could say the same thing about Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby created Darkseid, but he really created the shell of Darkseid. What we know as Darkseid now was started, I'm thinking, John Byrne.
Yeah, he helped. I mean, Darkseid was a regular character in those Fourth World books, so Jack did give him a personality in it. But but
he was also on Earth messing around with the what was that? The supervillain team. What's that series?
What, Secret Society of Supervillains? That's unfair that book was fun, but there were a whole lot of people out of place in that book.
Yeah, that is true. It's kind of like the Super Friends. Why do we need these Scarecrow and Sinestro? Yeah. But when you get down to it, though, Darkseid being the big evil of the DC universe really began after Crisis and in the hands of John Byrne, and that's who we know him as now. So Jack Kirby, absolutely the creator, by the way. I am not taking that away, but it is one perspective that some people take. But I still say, if you created something out of nothing, then you are the creator. If you come in and say, "Hey, Stan Lee, I've got an idea about a kid who gets spider powers," you just created Spider-Man. Now, the details that may be fleshed out early or later by you could say, oh, this guy, I came up with the concept, he came up with the name, I came up with the powers, and he drew the outfit.
Like, yeah,
you know, and y'all could say you're co-creators like that, but ultimately the one who created something from nothing, in my opinion, is the one who created.
Like the artist creates the design, what he looks like, and fleshes them out, everything, you know, and costume, all that stuff. He has rights to that stuff. So you know, Spider-Man logo, all that stuff, the signal, Fantastic Four, all that stuff. You know, not. And I agree with you as far as hers. You know, maybe Jack. It said, you know what? No, how about we do something about, you know, I like challenges I know, and I did that over DC. How about we do that over here in Marvel, you know, but we tweak it a little bit, you know, and you know, or it could have been Stan. Maybe Stan suggested, you know, how about I like your idea what you do over here, but what we're gonna do different. We're gonna make it better.
Yeah, well, it would come down also to the Bob Kane, Bill Finger. Bob Kane came up with Batman, but not the Batman we know. I believe Ed Brewer is commenting on this, saying if the design changes, the OG artist is out. If the personality changes, the OG writer is out. Right? No. I mean, you know, how would you perceive that? A lot of us would quickly give credit to Bill Finger over Bob Kane. I would be one of them, even though I just said. Because if you see Bob Kane's idea, Bob Kane came up with the name Batman. But the concept of the character Batman wasn't in that drawing. It was what Bill Finger wrote on the page.
Yeah, wasn't Bob Kane basically ripping off a character called the Bat?
Yes.
From the so now
and the spider and
one of the things that does suck in the whole Jack Kirby equation was the original art pages, but to blame Stan for that is probably misplacing that blame. I mean, I said, well, he could have fought harder for it. Well, Stan Lee was fighting for Stan Lee because, you know, yes, he was his nephew, but it wasn't like Stan Lee was living in the lap of luxury until he was 80 years old, basically, is when he finally made it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not fair, but, and then as far as the Silver Surfer, we were talking about that before. If I remember correctly, Jack just put him in a panel, and Stan said, "Who is this guy?" So yeah, Stan created. I mean, he drew the guy on the surfboard, and he goes, "Well, I just thought if a guy went around the universe eating planets, he would have to have somebody find him for him." That might have been as far as Jack ever intended to go with that character. I don't know who. You know, did Jack come up with Zen-La? Did he come up with the?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'll just say that. Yeah. So that's again, but yes, I don't even know what purpose relitigating this does at this point, but
he is saying that the Detective Comics 27 was a carbon copy of The Shadow.
A lot of people say that. Let's continue here. It goes. I was very fortunate. My father worked at home in his Long Island basement studio, we referred to as the dungeon. Usually 14 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. Most of the artists, writers, inkers, etc., worked at home, not in the Marvel offices as depicted in the program. And in every freaking comic book, I was shocked to find out people worked at their house.
Yeah.
Because forever, I saw them in the comics. They were drawn. Oh, here's the Marvel artists, and all the artists and writers are in the office and everything. For longer than I really care to admit. That's how I thought it was.
Before you go on, I said for those the younger folks, some people already know this. That was basically a takeoff on like the old Iger sweatshops and the Eisner studios, where in those days they did all the artists did work literally. It looked like an office. There were rows of desks, and they were working, side by side.
Yeah, that was more of a golden age thing.
Right. And I said, but this was kind of like, but it literally, I mean, not literally, it might as well have been a sweatshop. It might as well have been making prototype Nikes. Stan Lee's version of the bullpen was like an idealized version of that. It was a fantasy he was selling. Yeah. It's like, what if we had that, but everybody liked each other and everybody was having a good time?
You know what? I got to say, I liked the fantasy.
Yeah.
As a kid, I liked the fantasy.
I think it helped sell Marvel in those early days.
So it goes on to say, through middle and high school, I was able to stand at my father's left shoulder, peer through the the cloud of cigar smoke, and witness the Marvel Universe being created. I am by no means a comic historian, but there are few, if any, that have personally seen or experienced what I have and know the truth with firsthand knowledge. My father retired from comic books in the early 80s and, of course, passed away in 94. Lee had over 35 years of uncontested publicity, much naturally, with the backing and blessing of Marvel, as he boosted the Marvel brand as a side effect of boosting himself. The decades of Lee's self-promotion culminated in the cameo appearances in over 35 Marvel films, starting with the X-Men in 2000, thus cementing his status as the creator of all things Marvel to an otherwise unknowing movie audience of millions. I would have loved it, and I got to be honest, I didn't think about this in the beginning. I would have loved it if they found a way to put a picture of Jack Kirby in all the movies.
It would have been nice.
Yeah, or a name on the wall or something, you know? Like if they're in a library, Jack Kirby's name is on one of the books or something. Let's see. Unknowing audience of millions unfamiliar with the true history of Marvel Comics. My father's first screen credit didn't appear until the closing crawl at the end of the film adaptation of Iron Man in 2008, after Stan Lee, Don Heck, and Larry Lieber. The battle for creators' rights has been around since the first inscribed Babylonian tablet. It's way past its time to at least get this one chapter of literary art and history right. Enough said. That I did not know. I never really noticed, but that it would be a shame. Now, granted, if you think about Marvel movies, they started with Howard the Duck. And then it was
Captain America ones.
Yeah, no. Captain America and Fantastic Four from Roger Corman, which I think Captain America had a limited run.
And then Blade.
And then Blade, which Jack Kirby didn't create, so he wouldn't have had his name on that anyway. Yep. So it really would have only been the Captain America movie that would have given him credit anyway. That's a false statement there, Neil. I'm sorry, it doesn't go. Jack Kirby had nothing to do with the creation of Blade or Howard the Duck.
Well, that also includes the 3 Spider-Man movies and the X-Men movies.
No. Well, that's what he said. The first movie to have a credit was Jack Kirby on the X-Men. Jack Kirby helped create the X-Men, therefore he deserved it.
Didn't they say the first one was in the 2008 Iron Man?
Yeah, you're right. It's the X-Men.
Which is also the first movie made by Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
So the first Marvel Studios movie gives them credit.
But the other ones weren't Marvel Studios.
So the other ones were Sony and 20th Century Fox. So I mean, for what that means, I don't know. But and I said I was clarify something. Yeah, Matthew, what I meant by that was at this point, everybody's chosen their camps, and we don't know who knows what's real and what isn't real. And I'm all for, bringing it up to, each new generation. But I don't think it's so hard to get an unbiased, retelling of this, because I said it's so hard to find somebody that's even neutral. Because I said, I mean, there are people that just despise Stan. A way that I an analogy I made was, it was sort of like, almost everybody in comics leans left, but when they made this kind of political, they kind of assigned parties, and they made Stan the Republican and the conservative and Jack the liberal, when in reality it would probably have been reversed. But it's like in order to make you want to hate somebody, they kind of like made it almost like they assigned, political,
well,
whatever.
They bring up the Punisher. The Punisher, I don't Jack had nothing to do with the Punisher. I'm aware of. It was all It was
Eric is right. I completely forgot about the X-Men movies, but he really should have gotten a credit on all 3 X-Men movies, and he did in fact draw Spider-Man initially, so he should have gotten credit for that as well.
The Roger Corman in the movies. Roger Corman, he should get credit for. Did I say for Roger Corman?
Yeah, but Fantastic Four never actually made it to screen.
Yeah.
Captain
and
America had
those
like
two
a
movies,
2-week run.
Yeah, the two Fantastic Four movies weren't made by Marvel Studios either.
No.
You know, he should have been credited in all of those.
Yep.
Hell, you put his name in there in Spider-Man for all I care, because I said he's Jack freaking Kirby. And no, Stan is not a fake. He's a lot of things, but he's not a fake.
I wouldn't go so far, by the way, as old fart comment. Is that frag?
I don't know.
I don't know. Let's see. Basically, in the case of Fantastic Four, says MARANYA, Spider-Man, and other early Marvel characters, Stan would come up with the concept and then hand it over, and the artist in question to draw it. And that actually was released in a book called How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. You would plot it out, and then here you go, draw it. So sometimes, according to legend and story, so take this how you want, it would be, and the X-Men fight. And that would be like the basis of the next 10 pages. So it really, some people go after Stan for that. I don't want to be, I'm not anti-Stan Lee. I'm not anti-Kirby. I'm actually very pro-Kirby, but I'm also very pro-Stan Lee because he was comics to me in the early stage of my life. I just understand now that it's not all black and white.
No, and I would say that one of the things that the Kirby family can take solace in is that comic book fans have always been acutely aware of Jack Kirby's contribution to the industry.
Yeah.
And the people that only know Stan Lee are the same people that are going to forget that name as soon as superhero movies fall out of, I'm not going to say fall out of vogue because they're never going to fall out of it. But when those people move on to the next thing that interests them, they're not going to remember Stan either. Jack is an immortal where it counts. Now, I mean, we can't go back and, retroactively give him money for his art and stuff like that. I mean, we're just not in a position to do that. But like I said, comic book fans revere this man, and that's never going to change.
I know, Ditko, Kirby, both getting screwed over. But as far as I know, as far as Kirby, my understanding is that he screwed himself over. He wasn't a good businessman.
Did you know when Steve Ditko died, they found like almost $500,000 worth of original art pages in his apartment that he could have sold at any time. He didn't touch. He didn't care about them. He just, he was just so. I mean, I said, he was a unique individual. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Twiddles, by the way, bit the hell out of my ear for disturbing us sleep. By the way, Twiddles is Punisher. Twiddles would kick Punisher's ass. I'm betting my money on the bird. So.
The current version, yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, right back.
I wanted to go grab this if you guys ever get a chance. It's Kirby, the King of Comics. It's by Mark Evanier. And Mark Evanier, didn't he do what was that comic book a while back? It was, shoot, I'm going to forget it. It was basically a comic book about comics. It was just really good. And I can't remember, but this has got a lot of recreations, of course, of his art, both pencil and finished. And it's got a lot of story, basically talking about his life and before and after comics.
You'll Card saying it was Gru.
Say again?
Gru?
No. No, it was called something like Lock and Key or something like that. It was The Escapist. That was it. The Escapist was actually about a group of friends who were trying to create a comic book.
Yeah. And
it was very fun, good times. Anyway, but yeah, if you ever have a chance, get Kirby, King of Comics. Highly recommend that, as well as the Marvel Slugfest. I am now reading, oh my gosh, it's out of my head, Joe Simon's biography, so it's just a lot of fun. There's a great history in comics.
You know what always threw me for a loop? You got currently we got the SAG, I think all actors are on strike with the writers. You never see the comic industry. They complain about how they barely get any royalties I'm surprised they don't all just go on strike.
That's not. Henry Jeremick, the greatest thing that ever happened to comics was the creation of the Marvel method. It gave freedom to artists that made comics more dynamic. Before we talk on that, I do have to point out, for those, I noticed we have a few extra people in our live stream. Thank you for joining us. I don't require what are they called? I get so few of them. Super chats. That being said, I don't turn them down. So there you go. But anywho, what do you think about that? The Marvel method actually opening up comics.
I don't even know what the Marvel method is.
The Marvel method is exactly that. Like I will plot out the comic book, and you're the artist. I give it to you, and you just go, okay. Magneto is trying to destroy ships off of off an island that he's trying to take over. Go. You know, and then you just draw.
Basically, the artist is the storyboard artist, creator. You know, yeah.
Well, yeah, you've got a plot line, and now, yeah, it's kind of like a lot of artists in the day did argue that they were in fact the writers.
Yeah, because they plan it out, and then the writer would come in and add the dialogue with the already established art.
Yeah. One Slick is saying the drama over who deserves the most credit is just pride and vanity on the part of parties, as the truth is that without any of them, there is no Marvel Comics. And of course, but it is kind of fun to just talk about it, argue. What is your opinion? What is my opinion on
anybody wants to donate super chats to help pay for the AI I got running the channel? His name's Angleteen. That's why he's roboting a little bit.
Wait a second. If we were to go to the trouble to make him AI, couldn't we have made him like a hot girl?
We're broke right now. That's why we're asking for super chats. We'll upgrade.
Hey, you're right. $1.98 doesn't buy what it used to.
Oh, that is true. That is true. Marvel method, no script, plot outline only. But we were talking a little bit about it, and I really think it deserves its own video or its own live stream. But still, what do you think about what I said? Now, I'd say it's whoever created something out of nothing, but do you believe it's do you believe it would be the artist or the writer who created the character? Because the artist might come up with a picture, but there's no personality. Like you mentioned Silver Surfer. Is it really Stan Lee or whomever really wrote the first? It was Stan Lee in the Fantastic Four, and then of course he went to his own book. But who do you think would be the actual creator? Go ahead.
Evil Black Cat had said, well, Kirby drew a guy on a surfing board. Cool. Stan came out and made it better by adding personality to it. So that means they're co-creators.
Okay, but in that case, does that make well, goodness gracious, I just Tom Byrne, the creator of Darkseid. Going ahead.
No, because Stan was adding personality to the Surfer in the original story arc that introduced him.
Yeah.
So to me, if you're there, if you're both there now, Stan or Jack gets credit for the concept, Stan gets credit for the fleshing out. So to me, I look at it and said, I would say it's both of them, because without Stan, he might have been a one-off. Without Jack, there's nothing for Stan to expound upon.
Yeah.
But if, and I'm playing devil's advocate on this one, you got Gary Conway. He creates this character. He is an assassin. He's hired to kill Spider-Man. You find out, okay, he's a bit nutty at one point because he loses his mind a little bit. He's firing it. Oh, there's a litter bug. Crime against society. But then what we know is the Punisher comes from this, is not this crazy guy, is not the assassin that Jerry Conway created, but who was it? ZACK, who did the that
was Rita.
who was it that did the miniseries? Stephen Grant. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair to Jerry, though, he wrote the issue
in his second appearance, hell, even at the end of the first appearance, he recognized he'd backed the wrong horse. So he was, I mean, he had a code from the very beginning. This is why it kind of annoys me that Jerry Conway's basically throwing himself under the bus to get woke points now. If you go like Spider-Man 134 and 135, that Punisher is a lot like what we knew going forward. It's just that they took an idea and worked, because in between those the first two appearances that Conway did and the Stephen Grant series, Punisher went batshit. Hell, he tried to kill Captain America in Cap 241. He gets sent to prison in Daredevil, although that was very well done because it was Frank, and that led to what that led to the Stephen Grant miniseries. But yeah, it wasn't like in those first two Spider-Man appearances he was shooting at Aunt May for fun. I mean, he had a conscience then, and he had a mission then. He just thought he was sold a bill of goods that Spider-Man was a villain by the Jackal, the actual villain.
This is the thing. This is why I say whoever created something out of nothing should get credit, but also you can't kind of wave aside the big one, of course, is Bill Finger, Batman. Bob Kane may have said, I've got this character Batman, but Bill Finger said, wait a second, what if you do this? What if you do that? What if you do this? And then he throws in Gotham City, then he throws in the Batcave, he's got Joker, he's got Catwoman, he's got the attitude of the Batman. For Christ's sake, Batman was running around with a freaking pistol.
I kind of
that could have been Bill Finger's idea as well, though.
Yeah,
so
that's true. That's true.
Do one second, Beck. He was there Bill Finger was there at the beginning. So again, to me, that's different than someone who came along and took over the character years later.
Yeah. Okay.
I was going to comment on that because the whole thing with Romita and Ditko thing. Ditko owns his version of Spider-Man, but he co-opted it with Stan Lee, and then Romita gets royalty for his version of drawing it. Drawing it differently. There's different royalty guests created, but ultimately it was Stan Lee and Ditko that created the character. Now, unless Ditko drew it first and then got a patent for it, saying he was the sole creator of this, but as soon as Stan Lee added something to it, it became co-opted because Stan Lee added that,
You could, if you take the thing where you have, as soon as the personality changes, the character changes, which was brought up by Ed earlier, you do also, you have to think, and it does bring up all of the Golden Age characters, because there is not a Golden Age character out there that's acting as if it was 1940s.
No.
Of course, you also have the okay. Thank you. All right. Yep. Okay, you're gonna keep it? All right. And you took the ink out of it. There you go.
I'm gonna stab you.
All right. Now he has a war against pens. Okay. Yep. Yeah. There he goes. Alrighty. And down the other side of the neck. Okay. All right.
Now,
sorry about that, guys. This is Twiddles.
I would say, as far as Ditko probably had more to do with Spider-Man's creation than Stan Lee, and probably had a larger hand in the development of that character while he was there, because that character seemed to be a lot more, I don't know, his aunt notwithstanding, was kind of self-centered and into himself, more so than other Stan Lee characters at the time. And like I said, when he left, it was like Stan finally got to do it, with the character, what he wanted to do, which was, have him grow and develop as a person, become, get friends, be more personable. And I've said a million times, if Steve Ditko hadn't quit Spider-Man, I don't think Spider-Man is the I don't think that character's on the Mount Rushmore.
No, I don't think even a pop. I think they would have been in the first book. Been like the first Hulk.
No, it was gonna make it, but because it was 38 issues in, and it was a good seller, but I don't know that it would have ever become the absolute pop culture phenomenon that he has become.
I don't think it would have, because I mean, there's certain parts of those first 38 issues I don't like about it. As soon as Ditko left, you saw how the character changed, and to me that's more my favorite part.
Oh, it was literally overnight. I mean, the difference between Peter Parker in issue 38 and 39 is noticeable.
Yeah, like I said, it's like he had the symbiote when he was in the first 38 issues.
It's just, get rid of it. Went from having an objectivist, Ayn Rand disciple to a guy that just a whatever you want to call Stan Lee and John Romita. And if you read that first year of the two of them, the tone of that book, definitely there's a seismic shift. And, to me, the first 20, 25 issues of Stan and John are fascinating reading. It really is. The way Peter's, the way he, like I said, his friendship with Harry developed. The
who?
The Harry Osborn.
Okay, you gotta say the full name.
And the antagonism between Peter and Flash Thompson changed also. I mean, it wasn't gone, but it was more. Flash proved that he was more than just a one-dimensional bully. That there was actually a personality.
You mean like in the MCU?
Well, unless you count the one Andrew Garfield was in that was he was But so that's there's definitely a change, and one thing we'll never know, but what would Mary Jane have looked like? Because she was going to be introduced, because they were coming real close.
I would say she probably would look like Betty Brant.
I'm thinking that a long-haired Betty Brant.
Exactly. And then she would have hated Peter all the time because he's looking at another girl.
Well, let's see. Jim said, I've been reading Forever People and Assorted near early New God appearances. The main difference I've seen with the Byrne version is the actual size of Darkseid. He's much more intimidating.
He's not a midget?
Well, no, he was the same size as a lot of the regular villains and such in Supervillain Team Up and in the New Gods and so forth. And then after Crisis, he was a bit more of a giant. Let's see. Before Byrne, he was just a little bigger than standard. Will you stop biting my finger? Are we in a fight now?
I don't know, but I love how he's freezing every time you do that, though.
Oh my goodness!
Magic.
Gracious. There you go. Okay, I'll put this here. You get it. Get it. Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Anywho,
that was really weird though when I looked at we were doing the covers. Was it last week? We're talking about the different
Kirby covers.
Style. Yeah, the Kirby stuff. And seeing how he just looked like a smaller version of the Thing, their Darkseid, I was like, what the heck? Because I've only ever seen him drawn later on as being, well, him and Mongol are pretty big, in stature compared to other heroes.
Yeah, I like a giant Darkseid as well.
Otherwise, he was the size of Calabac.
Darkseid should be like the size of the Hulk.
Yeah,
7 foot, just a mass of muscles. And that's enough because you don't want to make him literally larger. You don't need
him the size of a building,
right? But yeah, like I said, the size of the Hulk is a good size for Darkseid.
Yeah.
Let's see, when Henry's saying when John Romita Sr. was the art director, he theoretically designed and therefore created Wolverine, even though it was Herb Trimp or Trimpy Trimp.
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah, do you mind? He theoretically designed and therefore created Wolverine, even though it was Herb Trimp that first drew him in print in Hulk 180 and 182. Well, obviously, if there's a character and he's created, it has to go to the writer. It's not always the artist. I mean, at one point in time, James Bond was brought into comics, like 50 years after his creation? I dare to say the first person who drew him who was not that guy who created him. So, and I do believe you were touching upon that point, that that sometimes you get your, if you want to argue that Stan Lee created Spider-Man the way that Ditko created Spider-Man, okay, fine. But you can't really say that John Byrne was the creator of Darkseid. He just put his stamp.
I'm gonna respond to Rhaegar. What's a trimp or what's a trimpy? It's someone who you hated as a kid when you saw his art, and then grew to appreciate as you got older.
That was Jack Kirby for me, by the way.
that was a lot. That was Jack, Frank Robbins. You really do have to get older to appreciate Frank Robbins.
So
Frank Springer, Herb Trimpe, Don Heck.
So Eric, and then would you say that a Gil Kane is someone who sticks their nose up at you?
Well, Gil Kane stuck his nose up at everybody because in Gil Kane's mind, the only talent in comics was Gil Kane. I love the man, but Gil Kane, but not as much as Gil did.
Yeah, I'll say one thing though. Ditko, he did create Peter Palmer, Superman.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, well, we came to find out that was, Heather Antos's grandfather was an editor of Marvel.
Doesn't surprise. Triumph and the writer, I'm going to say it always sometime during today, where the creators of Wolverine, Romita Sr. refined and built upon the character. Without Trump and the writer's foundation, there would be nothing for Romita Sr. to build on. Who created Deadpool? That is another question. Obviously, Rob Liefeld created Deadpool, but he was a very serious character and not whom we have come to know as Deadpool. That being said, if you go into that, like, what is it really Marvel Comics? Is it really whomever added the humor? I don't know. You guys probably know better than I do on that one. But if you see that the person who put humor into him and really created the character we know and love as Deadpool now, you would also have to say that it was John Byrne, once again, who created She-Hulk. We were talking the other day at the auction about how, or the night before when we were showing off the books, about how She-Hulk was Savage She-Hulk. It was a regular comic book. It was really in the Avengers that she started getting the personality that would eventually lead her to Sensational She-Hulk. But it was Sensational She-Hulk that added the humor, that broke the fourth wall, that did all the stuff that She-Hulk is really known for, and Deadpool ripped the f*** off. But there you go. Oh, by the way, She-Hulk breaking the fourth wall is actually a ripoff of Ambush Bug, which Deadpool is more a ripoff of Ambush Bug than he is of Deathstroke or She-Hulk.
I thought Ambush Bug was a ripoff of Impossible Man.
Let me drop my mic, but no.
I thought Impossible Man was the first.
No, the person who broke the fourth wall, tore down, knew he was a comic book character. Well, one of the first ones was Ambush Bug. What Deadpool is, Ambush Bug was in his comic book series written by Keith Giffen. True story.
Did you guys know that he really loves Ambush Bug? I don't know if you could tell or not.
Hey, Ambush Bug is pretty freaking cool. Thank you very much.
Who? I've never heard of this guy.
Right. I love Jack Kirby art as a kid, but I have eclectic tastes as Rhaegar. I didn't like the square, like everything was drawn square and he was really boxy and such.
I admit, I admit, you know this, everybody knows this, I've done a channel. Many times I said it, I was not a Kirby fan. Back in 2019, 2020, every time I see Kirby's art, I'm like, they're just giant blockheads. That's all they are. They're blockheads. They're the enemies of Gumby.
But after a while, I really started looking at his artwork, and much like Will Eisner, he worked with the medium of comics. He knew how to frame a page. He knew how to kind of he knew how to lay out a battle. He knew even just conversation, where to put the characters to make it the most dynamic. And I know I get in trouble for this because yes, I've got messages, but there was another guy in the 90s who was exactly the same way, except for I would say his art is actually crappy, but man, the guy knows what looks cool, and that's Rob Liefeld.
Yeah.
Yes, I just compared Liefeld to Kirby.
Crazy though, right now, Rob Liefeld is back doing X-Men books. He's got 3 X-Men books versus the other crappy X books there are now. And Rob Liefeld has the better ones.
By the way, I was wondering how many people were actually paying attention to us and how many people were watching my bird fight a pin.
I wasn't. I was looking at the chat.
By the way, guys, if like Chad here, you were more interested in if my bird was going to win the battle with a pin, let us know. I think it's kind of funny that Twiddles has a fan base.
Super chat your predictions.
Yeah,
$1.99. I still like the rightful. I mean, his Deadpool Bad Blood or Better Blood. I'm liking that more than the X-Men stuff is. You know, I've never sat down and read X-Force. You know, but I'm not a huge I feel like there's so many people who are just so anti Rob Liefeld. Where I look at this guy loves the business. He's not an asshole to the fans. He probably used to be a dick, but he's realized these are the people that pay for my shit. Why should I be a dick to them?
If somebody loves the medium, it kind of shows in the work. Rob Liefeld is definitely someone who is into comics for comics. Obviously, he got rich doing it, but for that, yeah. Are some comments on what we were talking about? Okay, Red Rhaegar, all artists are this. Says, I don't like everything any artist has ever done, and that's cool. That's understandable. Let's see. Rhaegar saying, I used to hate the Gen 13 guy's art, but I grew to love it. Who was that again?
J. Scott Campbell.
J. Scott Campbell.
Danger Girl art.
Yeah. Bill Sienkiewicz, or Sienkiewicz, whose muddy crap art style is shit, but he still gets work as an artist.
I honestly disagree. I like his on Moon Knight. I love his art.
Yeah, I was about to say I can see his point, but there are times when I do like his art. Sometimes he goes too Sienkiewicz. Let's see. She was savage, but with without the baggage, says Rhaegar. Talking about She-Hulk. So we have Keith Geffen for annoying Deadpool. No. We have freaking dumbass cosplayers who think they're as funny as Deadpool.
Actually, some of them are better than the writers at Deadpool.
First appearance of any character belongs to the artist writer of that issue. Later refinements are just that, refinements, but without the foundation, there would be no character build on, says Maranya. Basically putting that to bed. Kirby art grew on me, says Jim. I didn't really start appreciating it until I was picking up early Thor. And Rhaegar says, I used to not like Liefeld's art. There's a lot I don't like about Liefeld's art, but I got to admit, he's an exciting and dynamic artist.
People complain about Rob Liefeld, but don't say shit about Riley Rossmo. There's other artists out there that are worse than Liefeld.
Really, Rosmo, there's nothing good about Rosmo art. There's nothing good.
Although he did. Yeah. I will say this though, on our channel, was it this past Tuesday or last week? That Zatanna book, Night Terrors. Rosmo did a cover it, and it actually looked really good. It looked horrific.
Oh my gosh! Before you flush, look in the toilet. Oh, it's a Rosmo, and it's his art is literal shit. Twiddles is a badass, says grumpy old guy. Twiddles making himself a prison shank.
You should always look before you flush. So you don't flood the toilet.
And just to see how fast corn travels through the body. Let's see. X-Force was really good back in the day, says Rhaegar. She-Hulk's creators are the artist and writer of Savage She-Hulk. Burn and Slott refined the character. Enough said. Which I believe it was Steve. Stan Lee, who was the artist on She-Hulk. That one I forget. What I think is best Liefeld art is in Evangeline. It looks like he actually cared about that character. I think it was his girlfriend, wasn't it? Rob Liefeld, master of the pinup pose. Exactly. Careful when you criticize Liefeld, you might summon Richard Meyer. I wouldn't mind having.
I mean, Liefeld gave us
DNC on the channel for
crazy fantasy giant guns, which I think are cool. I don't care what anybody says.
You know, I did 2 videos. Comic books were better in the 90s, and the whole setup of those is just to remind you that there were great books in the 90s, even though we looked and it kind of put everything down. But when I'm looking back and I'm seeing things that the 90s did, I think one of the lowest moments is giving Superman big ass guns on the cover of the Andy book, and like, you know what? No.
Yeah, Seven She-Hulk was John Buscema.
Yeah, I said that and I realized I was muted. But he only did the first. He only did the first one.
Yeah, and we all know that was a book like. Wait a second, they're talking about what was it? The Hulk popular at the time because of the TV show, so they had to get a She-Hulk and a Spider-Woman.
Spider-Woman was created after the Nicholas Hammond show hit the air, and so that's.
And yet, Spider-Girl took 20 more years. Ow!
I gotta say, I'm really enjoying this. Everybody, let me know. Anybody else enjoying this? Every time he starts a robot, it's a little bit. It's like listening to auto tune.
No, I already got to Mister. Let's see. I think Rob Liefeld, and I think of Captain America's pectoral muscles. Okay, I watched a video. Some guy said he works out or looked at bodybuilders, and he thinks the pose was kind of like one of these bits that behind the shield, where it just kind of, because you can see it in bodybuilding contests to get that kind of protrusion of the chest in that picture. But yeah,
you remind me of the Tick.
Say again.
You remind me of the Tick.
Me?
No, not you. I'm talking about Ryan Reynolds' Captain America.
Oh, yeah. Are you talking about that famous big chest?
Yeah. It reminded me of the Tick. You know, that was the 90s style back in the day.
Let's see. Not crazy about Ramos on Spider-Man. McFarlane was miles better on Spider-Man than Larson. I think that is just spilling facts right there. Okay, stop.
Yeah, Humberto Ramos gave him clown feet.
I need new headphones because this one's he chewed through this. Will you stop?
Have you thought about just getting rid of the bird?
Gail? Yes, I have thought about getting rid of the bird. I really.
I mean, you have a window. Just say he's smart. He can open his cage.
He comes back. He flies back.
If he can open up his cage, he can open up a window. I don't care what Gail says. Gail, he used the old gun on himself.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he opened the door himself, Gail. You said that he's a smart bird. Yeah. You need wireless headphones. I'm looking into that actually. And maybe
daughter,
wireless smart.
One of them was gone. One of them's out of state, so they won't kill him. He at least had 2 or 3.
His wife and daughters would kill him. Yes, I have 2. One's working at the sandwich shop tonight, and I told her bring me home a BLT. She won't. Greatest freaking BLT in the world, man. Is at the Earl of Sandwich.
You guys finally did it. Best in the world.
Best coffee in the world. Woo! Let's see. Stan Lee could not create the Marvel Universe without Jack Kirby. The end. Of course. We all know that.
This whole argument is like the Hateful and the Coys.
Hatfields.
Whatever. It still stands. It's never gonna stop. There's always gonna be someone who's like, and it's gonna come forward like, it's just anger, resentment towards each other. You know, it's Stan and Jack are both dead. It's still going.
Okay, he can't get rid of Twiddles. He's family now. Actually, the way it works is they do bond with those they spend more time with. When we first got him, he was actually supposed to be a pet for Elizabeth. And there was a hurricane. Elizabeth came over to stay with me. This is when me and my wife were separated. And so Gail was home with the bird, and he was getting nervous, so she held him, and it became Gail's bird. Well, we move in together. Gail works, and I stay at, well, Gail works outside the home. I work in the home. So he's my bird now. Unfortunately, because he will not leave me alone.
I'm just geeking out here because I know what Jack's trying to say, but it sounds like he did a 4-part series on Twiddles.
I was just gonna say that.
Wait, what?
In the comments, because Joe he kicked rid of Twiddles, he's family now, and Jack says I did a 4-video series on channel attesting to that fact.
That's funny. To change the subject for a moment, for the auction, it would be appreciated if you could find Tomahawk. Saw her in GLA 159 and 160. We're talking about different Tomahawks, right? Tomahawk. A female Tomahawk, Eric?
I'm trying to make sense of that. I think wasn't that the one where didn't they like the Western heroes?
Was
there a female Tomahawk that was like the ancestor of Liberty, but Miss Liberty, or I don't know.
96. I'm very interested in reading Miss Liberty stories. I'll keep an eye out. I'm primarily now shopping at that warehouse, but I'm also looking online at collections and everything. Today I went crazy with bidding, and I've got I got a lot of stuff coming to Jim. I actually ended up finding some copies of the Jonah Hex. I tried to get a #1. Sorry about that. I missed out on that, but I did get some of the other issues that they had for that one. Like I said, I was able to get a lot of Freedom Fighters. What else did I pick up from
I don't
that?
see any female Hawks as far as Tomahawks. There's Tomahawk, Hawk Hawkins.
But yeah, anytime I can get those Silver Age Westerns. Let's see, Adventure Comics 362, DC Comics presents 41. That's the Joker. Freedom Fighters 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 13. I tried to get that last issue. Jonah Hex 11 and 14, Kid Colt 186, Brave and the Bold 114, Brave and the Bold 124, Brave and the Bold 139, and the Demon #1. I was very happy about that. I got to admit. Talk about Jack Kirby and Jack Kirby characters. I was able to pull it.
Yeah, is that Tom? It's Miss Liberty. He's thinking about thinking.
I love comics. Have you ever done a stream about books you enjoyed and hated artist changes? Not specifically. I think the big one, most of the people who've been around for a long time know. The biggest drop off in quality, other than Peter Tomasi to Brian Michael Bendis, would probably be the excitement I had telling you guys about Dan Abnett's run on Aquaman. Only have it go to Kelly Sue DeConnick. That was pretty bad. How about you, Eric? Where would you go with that?
Someone who's
you were loving that run, and then it went over a cliff.
Oh, it doesn't have to just be artists, right? It can be.
Oh yeah, just the writer, the quality of the book, the creator changes just threw it over the bridge.
The best example of the last 10 years, without question, is can we trade Tomasi and Jurgens for Bendis?
Yeah. You're right. He replaced two great creative teams.
The art got better because Ivan Rice is top notch, but and that's not a knock on the people that were drawing the Superman books, but yeah, that just it was just after the 5th issue of Man of Steel, it was over. Period. It was like he had 5 issues to lull us into. It's like then he goes, yeah, here's the payoff. Up yours.
How about you, Venk? Where would you go on that one? What is a creative team that you loved, and then the next one just hit the freaking wall?
Well, it's easy for me because it just kills me. Because Ram V was on Campbellman, and now look who's on there. T. Howard.
Oh, what a downplay. Ram V is actually a really good writer, and to go from Ram
check
V
him out to Detective Comics and all, and like anybody who takes over after him, it's just they're just doomed to fail. But they're like, let's go for the worst. Let's go.
Yeah, it is. going to be something. Who is going to take over Hawkman next after Venditti's run?
No one.
That's something.
Hopefully, she's into Axelrod. She's doing such a bang-up job with Hawk Girl.
Let's see if what anybody else might have said there. Like when the artist had a long run on the book before the change. This Liberty was one of the Tomahawk's Rangers. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll keep an eye out for that, Jim.
So, Tomahawk 81 is her first appearance.
Okay. I hated the artist after Texera on Ghost Rider Volume 2 as an example, says Dark Admiral. I have a poem, Kelly Sue DeConnick makes you want to vomit. Ha! Okay. Is that a haiku?
Tom King to Tamaki? Well, no, Tom King wasn't on Detective Comics.
No, that was Tomasi for Tamaki. And at first I was hoping it was a typo, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would take Tamaki over Tom King any day.
Actually, she wrote a better Batman than Tom King did.
For a few issues.
Tom King was pretty hit and miss on Batman as well.
Oh, yeah.
There was a good run of Teen Titans that started with Jeff Johns, and there was this woman, Felicia something or other, came in and just destroyed it. It was horrible.
Wasn't that? Didn't you have the same problem on America Chavez? Gabby wrote that awesome book, and then someone else took over.
Yeah, Gabby's. The weird thing is it is so horrible. The Gabby Rivera America Chavez is so horrible, it's iconic to the point where who can follow Gabby? Do you really want to read an America Chavez book that's not written by Gabby Rivera?
No,
I don't.
It's funny that yes, it is. It's as bad as anything you're ever going to read, but it's entertainingly bad. Whereas Jeremy Whitley's Unreadable Wasp or Kate Leth's Hellcat or Mariko Tamaki's Don't Need No Man Hulk. Those are just terrible comics, but they're not enjoyable either. They're just you could kind of make the same case for Cecil Castellucci's Female Furies.
Yeah,
it was entertainingly bad, and that's an achievement in and of itself. Although I don't think that's the intent. But
can you imagine? Birds of Prey. Chuck Dixon leaves. Gail Simone takes over. Now, if you would
miss a beat.
No, he did not miss a beat. Now, imagine if that was later in the later 2000s.
Oh yeah, if Twitter personality Gail Simone had taken over, it would have changed overnight. Yeah,
yeah. It's just so crazy to go and read her stuff back then, and then it's just like it's night and day.
Yeah,
it's like what the hell?
And
happened?
She had a run too. Birds of Prey was really good, and then the Villains United was pretty good. And I will stand up and cheer for her Batgirl. That was a really good run as well. But yeah, she was doing pretty good in the 2000s. Once she discovered Twitter, though, off the cliff.
Well, I'm not in total agreement with you on the Batgirl, because that was the series that she was fired from for not getting around to doing the next issue, and she used her Twitter clout to shame DC into letting her come back. So, and by that point, I don't know what issue that was. I mean, I wasn't overly impressed with any of them, but it just, whatever was there was just gone after that.
All right. Jim's bringing up something, and I'm going to ask a question that's kind of related to it. Jim's saying, another one for me is any writer of Harley Quinn after her original series in the 90s. Harley Quinn. You cannot change my there. I will never have that. Change my mind, because it's not impossible. Harley Quinn may be the worst victim of the New 52. Who else fell victim to New 52? Meaning they were a hell of a lot better post-crisis, but New 52, not so good.
Well, I would. Green Lantern?
That's a good question. No, Green Lantern was fantastic in New 52. That was one of because Green Lantern and Batman were pretty much left alone.
Yeah, until the whole Kyle thing and Carol. That was gross.
because absolutely.
That was the end of New 52, though.
Like who other than Harley Quinn was destroyed by the New 52.
Yeah, I would actually the one that Palmiani and his wife did with Power Girl, that wasn't bad.
Okay,
but I think what put all the nails in the Harley Quinn coffin was when she was no longer a character, just one half of Harley and Ivy. Where is there was a Harley and Ivy prestige format book where they were basically Thelma and Louise.
Yeah.
When they became, Mr. or Mrs. and Mrs., it was over, because now the fans of Harley Quinn don't want anything more than for her to just be half of Harley and Ivy. And they want, Reddit posts of them cuddling and whatever. So like I said, that character's done. For comic book fans, that it's over, because that's what it's going to be now. It's just T. Franklin versions of Harley Quinn.
Right.
So the worst for me though is when John took over Superman.
Oh, Lobo. Yeah, New 52 emo Lobo.
Oh shit! Yeah, good one, Undead Quinn. Yeah, that. Yeah, and the fact that the cover. What was the cover had him holding like real Lobo's head or something like that. I was like,
which doesn't make sense because he can just regrow his body back.
It's one of those things. It's like doing that to original real Lobo is kind of like Rachel Zegler going around telling us how bad the timeless version of Snow White has been, and oh my gosh, our version is going to be so much better.
Yeah, and Lobo's sitting there listening to Dashboard Confession or whatever that. Ugh.
Yeah, the only good Harley Quinn has been in the Sean Gordon Murphyverse.
Yeah,
because he took the problem and fixed it for DC. The one you don't like, the one that's really shitty, the Margot Robbie and all that crappy one, that's not really Harley Quinn. That's just some crazy lady that the Joker mistook for Harley, and she's been with him since then.
Matt saying that he 100% echoes the Kelly Sue on Aquaman, but would like to add Ed Brubaker leaving Catwoman.
I do not agree with that, because I honestly think that Will Pfeiffer. It's whatever Pfeiffer. I always get him confused with the guy that wrote the comic book history books. I think was better than Brubaker on Catwoman.
I like Dixon on Catwoman.
Jim Sorenson's bringing up.
Both. I'll take either one.
Yeah. Jim Sorenson is bringing up that Suicide Squad got ruined with the New 52. I don't think.
Yeah, I'd go along with that, because well, the original series post Crisis was great, and then there were a couple of smaller series in the early 2000s that were really, really good, but again, Suicide Squad at the time was nothing more than Harley and her pals. And when that character was everywhere, at least for a time, Marvel was smart enough to keep Deadpool's, overexposure to variant covers. I mean, they didn't put him on every X-Men team, or like this, what would have ordinarily been a serious book, and just had him take over. And Harley Quinn just took over Suicide Squad. And if you didn't like Harley Quinn, you were screwed.
The rebirth with the Suicide Squad was pretty good.
I like the one that happened around the time of the movie. I thought that one was pretty good. Ahsoka saying, you guys remember the time it was revealed that Kryptonians don't look like humans and they look like green speckled aliens, and that they had shape-shifting powers, and Clark Kent went to looking human as soon as he heard the Kents approaching? Was that a thing?
You remember that time when Lobo was the last of his people because he killed all of them, and then you found out that last issue, this modern recently, that he lied, and there's a whole planet now of Lobos.
Undead. I'm kind of with you on Supergirl too, but I didn't like the Jeff Loeb version, because they did away with a really cool version to make room for that.
Yeah, I disagree. We're on opposite sides, but
What?
so I did not care for Matrix Supergirl. I liked the one that came on in the Batman Superman.
No, I'm see you left out Peter David's 80-issue run,
which was awesome.
Was that considered the Matrix Supergirl?
No, that was the Matrix Supergirl merged with Linda Danvers.
Oh, okay. Well, that's.
And it was a totally different character from the one in.
Oh, by the way, Jim saying Harleen and Joker Harley were exceptions. I really liked that story where she's the
news reporter.
She's working with the forensics.
Yeah.
Trying to build a profile on the Joker. That book was good. I think it was Harleen. That one was Harleen.
Yeah, that was the Black Label one.
Harleen, yeah, but it was really good. I like that one.
Yeah, but Venkman, have you read any of the Peter David Supergirl?
I did. I just couldn't get into them. I didn't like them. I actually liked it post-crisis when there was no Supergirl.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's
because last Sun. It was Last Sun. Then we got Superboy, and then that was pretty much about it. And then they brought. It wasn't until after post-crisis they went into whatever you call it. The Johns era. They're changing things around.
Well, so the Peter David Supergirl is in my top 10 all-time runs.
Yes.
So
which, by the way, I know we did a while back. We talked about our favorite runs, but I think that's a video on itself or a live stream on itself. We've got to talk about the best runs of comics again.
If they incorporated it with having that crossover, Peter David's crossover merge with Marv Wolfman's Superman stuff, but it was separate though.
They did. No, they did.
When? What year
that
was
book
that?
Started in '97.
Okay, that's way.
So so there was about 3 or 4 years because they started undoing all of it at about the turn of the century.
Yeah, because
and then again, by 2004, we were back to sniveling Clark Kent, and Jeff Loeb said, "I want to do Supergirl, Silver. I want to do Silver Age Supergirl," and they couldn't get Peter David, kicked off fast enough. And so I think, that's why he used his heads up to introduce the Silver Age Supergirl.
Yeah.
And then shot her off into space. Okay.
So the Matrix, he's talking about before that's a Superman. I remember that was the Matrix that looked like Clark and he left.
Yeah, that's too, as I said, that character merged with Linda Danvers in '97 for the Peter David run.
I didn't realize it was that late in the run, but as far as, like I said, having Supergirl, interacting with Clark Kent,
And the cartoon series where Supergirl has the white T-shirt and the tight skirt?
Yeah, I know it's based off of that.
That's from the Peter David series.
Yeah, and I liked how that was how they worked together.
It was just a tremendous series. It was so well done because Peter David doesn't know how to write bad comics.
But my thing is, I love Kara Kent. Kara growing up with the Kents.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this Kara didn't. The one that's around now.
The one that was also being brought. It was also brought up, I believe, by Matt. Wally West was messed up by the New 52.
I thought he was just ignored by the New 52.
He was, because they brought Barry back.
I mean, because that was his return was what introduced Rebirth.
Rebirth, yeah. Hydrolito, hello, saying there have been stories with shape-shifting power, also with telepathic power, but was not originally different from human-looking that I read, says Hydrolito. I guess that's the Kryptonian thing. I am unfamiliar with this completely.
There was an issue during the 50s. Superman would gain powers just completely at random, and there was one issue where he could change his appearance to look like anything, kind of like Martian Manhunter can do. And then they said, maybe not. So
that one's one step too far. Look, we'll draw the line at super ventriloquism. After that
was another one. But he can still do that. He can do that throughout the Silver Age. And
that reminds me, he just recently got a power. And now you remember the girl from the current X-Men, whatever. Her name is, I think, Armor. I think it because she could create a construct around her. Now Clark can do that because he learned it from when he was lost in space. Now he has his own his construct he creates around him, like a giant Superman, and he uses it. It's like, what the hell is this crap?
That's dumb as fuck. That's just one more.
And I don't know if that was Bendis or if that's Christopher Priest adding into that bullshit, or or was
that
it
was horse crap. I'm sorry, Superman. He's got his good set of powers that have been there forever and a day. Adding on to him,
but I gotta say though, I mean, the only thing that's good about Action Comics right now is the Dan Jurgens story with John, John Kent.
No, I'm enjoying Action Comics. I don't mind that.
I prefer the current Joshua Williamson Superman story.
No, if I had to pick between the two, I would probably choose that. But I'm not. You just hate those kids.
Well, I mean, last son of Krypton. Now there's multiple kids.
Don't get me wrong. I said
it's like
we're never going to have
change the. If you want to have, don't do Action Comics. Bring back Superman Team Family.
We're never going to have what we had in the 80s and 90s. Tomasi and Jurgens was the closest we're ever going to get again.
Yeah,
but I guess I say I like it. I don't love it, but it's not Bendis.
True. But I mean, but if you're gonna have this many freaking people around, just call it Superman Family.
No, I'm not arguing that.
I'm just saying. Action Comics has always been Superman related. I mean, but it's the point where it's become like there's too many freaking Kryptonians. At the point where Connor, he says, "Oh, I guess I'm not needed anywhere." He just leaves. It's like
I get that. I'm just glad. I said I would love to be able to read Spider-Man, but you couldn't pay me to read Spider-Man now.
Well, no,
I wish I could read the X-Men. You couldn't pay me enough. And Tom Brevoort, that doesn't help.
That's the other thing too. I'm
Avengers, same thing. I mean, like all those Marvel characters, I wish I could read, but they all suck.
You could have the best writers on there right
At
now.
Least,
but
I can read Superman.
No, Spider-Man, you get the best writers on there. Right? If you want to on there, put them on there. But the fact is, that you have Miles Morales, and then you have Spider-Gwen. It's not Spider-Man anymore. It's Spider-Man. It's basically Spider-Family. Like you said, it's like the Green Lantern Corps makes sense because you could have there's a whole bunch of characters. But do I want a book that's basically just John and Guy and Hal hanging out on Earth? Yeah, it's called Green Lantern.
I take it. I would love. I mean, if Marvel ever had competent management again, I'd love to see them do an issue where Peter Parker. It begins with Peter Parker in the shower, like Bobby Ewing on Dallas.
Yep.
And all of the rest of the Spider characters are gone. Other than Miles, you can keep Miles because kids like Miles, but the rest of the umpteen billion Spider whatevers. No, like I said but the closest I can get is just like a good writer that writes Tim Drake now. Can't have him like girls, but they don't have to have him petting Bernard. Yeah. And that's as close as we're going to get with Tim Drake. The same thing with like the writers that choose to ignore the 87 other Spider characters and just write Peter.
Honestly, at this point, I would just I would just make Norman Osborn freaking evil.
No.
Yes.
No, because if he turns evil again, he turns into the Big Show.
I want him evil. I want him to kill I want him to kill Miles. Get rid of Miles. Sorry. I want him to say like, Peter, you dumbass. I've been just, you trusted me. How stupid are you? I want him to.
Well, see, that's what's going to happen because Marvel has no imagination.
No, and
only two good things that have been done since One More Day is undoing sins past and redeeming Norman. Though I still don't like Peter working with him, but. Because, like I said, I don't care that that it's not the same guy between his ears, but it's the same shell that kicked his girlfriend off the George Washington Bridge. But I don't have a problem because we've had Green Goblin Norman, we've had Evil Businessman Norman, we've had Lex Luthor Norman. We've never had good guy Norman, other than the time in between times when he would pop up for about 2 issues, setting up the next Green Goblin appearance.
If you're gonna have good Norman, just copy DC. Do the whole. It's a multiverse. He's a good Norman from a different universe.
The thing is, he wasn't always evil. It was chemically induced. So I kind of like where they're going with this. Now
the problem is that he gave his sins have been transported to another person. Now his sins are going to come back to him.
I'm not saying there's not stupid writing along the way, but I said evil Norman's been done to death, and if they're going to make him evil again, then make him Green Goblin again. Have him show up every couple of years and put another spider glider through him or whatever.
I think he never should have went good. I'm sick of this shit where everyone has redemption arc, and the fact that he's the guy who murdered Gwen Stacy in front of him.
Again, I said it. I get that. And that's why I said I don't have a problem with him trying to redeem himself. Like I said, but my problem is having Peter working with him. I don't think that's realistic, but him trying to atone for the evil he did while he was messed up, that's more interesting than here's Norman, a bad guy again, because there's a million of those guys.
To me, it's like I said, Marvel at this point. They could reveal that Norman's the one that killed Uncle Ben in front of Peter. But Peter, I forgot about that.
Don't give him any ideas.
They'll do that shit. No, as I say,
when we found out that Joe Chill was the last in line of a 2 million year old spider bat clan that started in a cave, and
Joe Chill was actually
that was a planned hit.
I'm not a big fan of that. And they did that, by the way, way back. It was either late golden or early silver that we found out that it was a planned hit to kill off Batman's character. But when it takes away the randomness of the crime. The whole point was the randomness, that it could happen to anybody, that Bruce Wayne as Batman wanted to make sure it never happened to anybody.
And when that poor man's Bilbo Biggins that was in Spider-Man, when they did the Ezekiel Spider Clan shit, that Spider was there for a reason, kid. You stop that shit.
I completely agree. The randomness is a hell of a lot better.
To me, it's like what they did to Norman is like having Batman being mentored by the Joker.
No.
Yes.
No.
I so want to read that Batman manga book, though. The one where the Joker takes care of Batman as a baby.
See?
He's a baby. You got to, right? I don't know. I went to Ollie's.
What's in his diaper? Guano.
I went to Ollie's, and Ollie's had paid off. Never read this.
Jim Carrey.
Yeah, apparently it's the Joker's in Arkham, and everybody's afraid to be his psychiatrist, and he tears people apart, so forth and so on. And this guy's like, "Yo, I'll take it." And okay. Then they also had DC Comics, The Art of Darwin Cook. So it's a collection of a lot of the stories he did with all the characters. I think it has an issue of the New Frontier, but otherwise stays away from that kind of stuff and gets the single issue he did here and there of all different characters. I've never read any of the New 52 Batman, so I figured, okay, they had this one, The Death of the Family.
I actually read that.
Any good?
If you can get past the fact that, remember the 3 Jokers story?
Yeah.
Well, that's like 6 Jokers, because you'd have to be about 6 of them to get around as much as he did in that.
Gotcha.
Story.
Okay.
Other than that, it's fun read.
Black Cat says Killer Smile is a 6.5 or maybe a 7 out of 10.
Okay. It was only $6. I figured, what the heck. But this was the big draws. I got the Elseworlds Justice League, and I'm a big Elseworlds fan. I just dig those stories. So
Wonder Woman kills people.
Let's see what does it?
No, but yeah, that book he showed up. It looked like a Jim Carrey Joker.
Justice League, League of Justice #1, Justice Writers, the Elseworlds Finest. Wonder Woman, Amazonia, Titan, Scissors, Paper, Stone, and the Elseworld's Finest, Supergirl, and then we have this one, and this is awesome. I love. First of all, this is one of the greatest Elseworld stories, the Darkest Night, but it's also got the Holy Terror in it, Castle of the Bat, Dark Allegiances. It's got the Houdini, Joker's Wild, the Robin 3000, Batman Blue and the Gray, and of course the Holy Terror. It's really, I'm very happy about this. And there's a lot more. I was actually surprised at how much was there. So Batman Beyond has a Joker gang with a bunch of Jokers, says Hydra Leader. It was a good cartoon there. Jim Carrey would be better as a cosmic villain like Mr. Mitzel.
If you could get used to like a 6'3" Mr. McPicklet.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, so that, you know, well, unless that, I swear, like a Peter Dinklage would be better for that. But did you say Batman Blue and the Gray is in that thing you just got?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you see who wrote that? Because I was surprised because I didn't know that until after I'd read it.
Elliot S. Mag.
Yeah, he was one of the Bronze Age, just cookie cutter DC writers.
That's a good one.
That's really good.
Let's see. We got Alan Weiss and Jose Luis Garcia inking it. Norm Brayfogle on Batman Holy Terror. So there's some good books here. But in here, I particularly like Batman Beyond's DD, but not DD. Anywho, Jim Carrey did an impression of Jack Nicholson's Joker on Living Color back in the day. It was eerily spot on. I haven't seen that in a while. I knew. Guys, we've almost made it 2 hours. That is a long.
That's a new record for you.
I know. Well, I don't think other than the auctions, I don't have the 5 hour. No, I'd rather break them apart.
Hey, speaking of people from the 5 hour auction era,
yeah,
did you see where Philip Cummins has resurfaced as a religious channel?
Really?
Yeah, it popped up. 2 videos today popped up in my notifications. I can't get one for you. But I get 2 of them from somebody who hadn't done a video in 4 freaking years.
Thank you, YouTube. Shadow banning doesn't exist, ladies and gentlemen. No, not at all. You are on here almost as much as I am, and you can't get a recommendation in my videos. Nerdy Texan and Twitter. Hey, why'd you stop doing videos?
I always get your recommendations.
Yeah, I get Geeky Puppet Show.
Yeah.
I do get that. I'm trying to think of somebody.
Yeah, I don't watch all your stuff, but I get your recommendations for your stuff.
Here's where you know that someone has effed with you. When if I'm watching if I'm like gone from the auction by a certain time or watching one of your live streams that I'm not on, and on my phone and I'll leave for a minute to check something else out. When I come back and go back into YouTube, sometimes I'll have to scroll and then get pissed off and type in your name again. Yours should always be one of the first 2 based on the amount of time I have wasted. Spent watching your content.
Yeah. If they say it's the algorithm, and of course there's no shadow banning at all. I can't, I've got different, I have different channels, I've got the movie channel and Disney, that kind of stuff. And I'm subscribed. All of my channels are subscribed to all of my channels. Same thing. I have to find I Love Comics sometimes. So, yep. If I had 5 hours to spend, I'd be chilling at auctions, but alas, I cannot, says Almighty Jack.
The thing is that
dude, you know what? Since I've got you here, I would like to show off the fact that the big dogs have changed a bit. We got we actually have some pretty decent big dogs, I'm saying is
also Jack. You
Yeah.
can always check out his eBay channel.
So
books I don't get on here.
As a matter of fact, I sold a Hulk 102. And by the way, I did that when the money came into the bank account. I did exactly what I said. I said, you know what, I'm going to do a 1-to-1 where I'm going to get something for that Hulk that I'm going to like. I've been trying to get a JSA Omnibus #1 for a long time now, and I'm actually very happy about that. We have the 3rd appearance of Ghost Rider. We've got My Greatest Adventure #9. We've had some pretty damn good. The 2nd appearance of Silver Age, Ray Palmer. Some pretty damn good big dogs recently, thanks to this warehouse that's opened up. Fingers crossed, I've got a Sea Devils #1 coming up. So every Saturday night, 8 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen, we do an auction. If you haven't been there, please stop by. Everybody's welcome to bid and such.
Who was Adam after Ray Palmer?
It was Chu, right?
Ryan Choi.
Choi. That's what. Yeah.
Choi.
I want to say Frank Cho, but that's not the right answer.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not Cho, is it?
Yeah, couldn't tell them apart.
No, I thought it was Tim Lim.
Yeah, Tim Lim was the new. Yeah, I don't know if I should ever live that down.
Well, but that was very nice. I saw a picture from a convention recently where Tim Lim was standing next to a guest, and the guest had a mask. And at first I thought, man, that seems kind of weird in 2023. Turns out that was just so you'd recognize Tim between the two.
Honestly, Tim has joked himself. He went to Japan, and he said they all look like me.
He has forgiven me that because he did the same thing. He went to Japan and couldn't tell people apart.
He went to Florida. They all look the same.
Black hair, dark eyes. Yeah, okay. Let's see. I make sure to watch him so I can comment. I certainly appreciate that kind of stuff.
I mean,
Toodles will be the final boss in season 10 of MSH.
Oh, no, Jackson was talking about if I make more videos because he said that he never gets my notifications because that's a damn shame.
Yeah.
If you
Jackson's a funny man, so I told him I'd make new ones so we could miss those too.
You should be getting notifications if you watch it on the PC or do you watch it on your phone? Because if you watch it on your phone and you hit you click the bell, which is all, you will get notifications unless you specifically turn it off.
I've got the bell wrong and I don't get them all.
Maybe your phone just sucks. What do you got?
Well, it does suck, but it also doesn't like anything.
I mean, I have an iPhone. Maybe that's why. He's just
right. Anywho, what's going on this week, kids?
Well, tomorrow night, we're gonna be talking about the Three Musketeers movie, the one with Eva Green over on what's it called? Extreme Movie Show. But on the Geeky Pup Show after that at 8 p.m. Central, it's gonna be me and Zach talking about the new books coming out this week. Probably an offline reading on Wednesday. I think Breen's gonna be over by Gratu this week.
I think I am going to make
For the
my
fossils.
return. Yes.
And then on Thursday, it's the best of the week follow-up on the Geeky Puppet Show. But also on Tuesday, though, there will be something here at 10:30 Eastern. That is
Cat,
RPG.
set your notifications for my obituary. Just cut out the middleman.
Look for the smoke signal.
On Tuesday, 10:30, ladies and gentlemen, join MARANYA and crew as they battle the villains of the Marvel Universe in the Marvel Universe role-playing game. And there you go. A lot of fun. Please help out the algorithm. Click like, share, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. Go over to From the Long Box as well. The link is in the description below. Subscribe to that.
Just go between Geeky Puppet Show and this channel, and there's something here every day, pretty much.
And by the way, Rod talked to Micah and Graphic Man, and he is getting better.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
So we may not be on hiatus as long as I thought, but so he's already, hates that he's not allowed to do what he wants to do.
hopefully that won't mean he won't. Hopefully that means he won't rush it and have a setback. But you know, hopefully Mrs. Graphic is keeping him in line.
Okay. And Rhaegar is pointing out the true facts by saying, I got a lot of bells clicked and never get them. Usually it's for channels that are not politically correct, and I'm never going to hide my politics. Just won't. All right, kids. Once again, thanks for hanging out with us. And as always, thank you very, very much for watching. You guys have a great night.
Good night, kids.